he launches the first major American ground offensive of the war, Operation Starlight.
Intelligence indicated formations massing for additional attacks against airfields. So the idea was to go in and break these up.
Operation Starlight involves a preemptive strike against Viet Cong guerrillas who threaten the vital airbase at Chu Lai. The Viet Cong have 1,500 men, armed with hundreds of light anti-tank weapons. Against the VC, the Americans deploy an initial force of over 3,000 Marines, supported by a dozen tanks. August 18th, 1965. Marine tanks head inland to seek out the enemy. Confidence in the mission is high.
That's what we're there for. We're all excited to be going to war.
As the fighting rages, Marines in the field are soon in need of supplies. And tanks from the 1st Tank Battalion are called in.
We were going to provide security for 5 Amtraks that were loaded with sea rations and water. And we were to deliver those sea rations and water to our troops.
But the American commanders make a crucial error. Supply Column 21 heads off without any infantry support.
By itself, a tank is vulnerable in guerrilla and insurgent operations. To make a tank less vulnerable, one has to surround it with protective infantry.
Infantry support can deter an enemy from getting too close to the tanks.
Because a tank is relatively blind, if you can get up close to it, you can actually, deploy a number of anti-tank weapons.
As the convoy advances deeper into the jungle, it finds itself on a small trail.
The nature of the terrain restricted the movement of tanks.
Hundreds of VC guerrillas seize the opportunity to close in on the isolated convoy.
We're in a fairly dense, dark jungle. It wasn't very long that we were now taking small arms fire. You'd see muzzle flashes. We listened to the thwack, thwack, thwack of small arms fire hitting our tank. I was terrified. I couldn't see very well. It's like being in a paper bag with a little bitty pinhole to see out of. And you know there's bad stuff out there. I'm using my .30 caliber machine gun. I know that I don't have a lot of ammunition, because I'm trying to literally pick a target and hit it. My tank commander said, "We're coming to a clearing." I'm looking across a sunny opening. I'm looking at a rice paddy. But I see the first tank take either an anti-tank rocket or an anti-tank gun.
The Viet Cong have sprung a trap, a maneuver ambush. The maneuver ambush involves taking out the lead tank in a convoy, then the rear tank, then targeting the rest of the immobilized column. The first stage has worked. The lead tank has been halted.
Military warfare training tells you we're next. And bam, my tank commander screams, "We're hit! We're hit!" And he said, "Abandon tank." And I see Corporal Vickery's feet going out the top hatch. I get up and I look out the periscopes, and there's 2 guys just inside the edge of the jungle. He comes up and he fires a rocket and clangs off and bounces away. I turn back and look, and I can't get the gun down on him. He's too close to get down over the fenders.
The Viet Cong had a tactic known as hugging their enemy's belt. Close in so close that the tank cannot bring its main gun to bear.
The Marines are surrounded, and radio communication with headquarters is cut off. The lead tank is out of ammunition, and its crew wounded, so it pulls back to get help.
It rolled back into the jungle and was gone.
Hearn's lone tank is left to prevent the convoy from being annihilated by the Viet Cong.
I'm getting some black smoke in the turret. It's noxious. I decide it's time to get out. I stand up in there in a crouched position, and now I'm watching this 3.5 rocket launcher over here. He fires around. It hits just below the cupola, clangs off, climbed up and jumped out and jumped right over the back of the tank. There beside me is Corporal Vickery. He's on his hands and knees. He says, "Hearn, I'm hit. Hearn, I'm hit." It's obvious sooner or later they're just going to walk in and get us.
Supply Column 21 is down to a handful of Marines, struggling to hold off the VC. The final stage of the ambush begins. The Viet Cong close in for the kill.
And as I leaned up there, I take a bullet in the side of my neck. Much of the back of my head is blown out of my mouth.
Private Hearn is left for dead when the VC withdraw into the jungle. The next day, Hearn and the other survivors of Supply Column 21 are finally rescued. By the time Operation Starlight ends, Viet Cong losses are estimated at over 600 dead.
We underestimated them really, really badly. That was the case very early on in Vietnam. Operation Starlight was successful in that it did achieve its tactical goal, which was to break up units that were potentially massing for an attack on the airfields.
However, the U.S. Marines suffer 45 dead, and a quarter of their tankers are wounded or killed.